Welcome back to the TM Podcast. Today I wanted to talk about Bloody Mary. It's a game you've probably played before as a young child around Halloween with your friends, and maybe something happened. If you haven't or haven't heard of it, it's where you stand in front of a mirror in a darkened room and chant Bloody Mary a specific number of times, and then when you turn the lights on, Bloody Mary will reach out and scratch you or take you away or haunt you forever. There are tons of different variations and different ways of things you're supposed to do or say with different results. The real question, though, is where did it come from? Folklore experts tend to think that the story is just an exaggerated version of a coming-of-age tale, meaning with lack of proper education of what the changes in their bodies meant, young girls thought that getting their periods meant they were being haunted by some bloody demon forever. The oldest version of the tale that I can find states that young women would hold a candle and a hand mirror and walk backwards up a flight of stairs hoping to catch a glimpse of their future husband. Sometimes, however, they would see a skull or the face of death, meaning that they would die before they ever got the chance to marry. Somewhere throughout the years, the ritual changed from that to seeking out the entity specifically with no real reason for why. Like I said earlier, the ritual varies from person to person. Standing in front of a mirror and saying her name a certain amount of times or saying different phrases is supposed to bring her into the mirror in the form of a blood-covered corpse or a ghost that screams or harms you in different ways. So what are kids seeing? Is it really a ghost or just their imagination? Science points to a phenomenon called strange face illusion. Giovanni Caputo of the University of Urbino says that this illusion is a consequence of a dissociative identity effect which causes the brain's facial recognition system to sort of misfire when given a certain set of circumstances. Another possibility is something called Troxler's fading. It's the illusion that affects your visual perception of an object or image. When you fixate on a certain point for a long period of time, parts of what you're seeing outside of your focal point seem to fade away, and it creates a sense of movement that isn't real. These factors, on top of being terrified and young, seem to rule out the possibility of a real mirror lady attacking children. Real or not, you won't catch me chanting anything in front of a mirror ever for any reason. Whether you believe in the game or not is up to you. But the truth is that Bloody Mary was a real person. A real person with a story that's stranger than just a spooky game you play as a child. It was Queen Mary I. She was born on February 18th, 1516 in England. She was the first legitimate child of King Henry VIII, and he was pissed off about it. He wanted to have a male heir to the throne, but his wife Catherine could not produce one. There were several stillborns, but no live male was ever born from Catherine to take the throne. He annulled their marriage and banned Mary from seeing her mother. Seems harsh, and honestly, I might do either an episode on Henry VIII himself, or maybe even an entire other podcast on the history of England, because the 1500s was just absolute fucking chaos in England, and it needs to be taught better in schools. I won't go too deep into it now, but anyways, Henry did not want Mary to take the throne in any way, so he tried to make sure that she was declared illegitimate for the throne. On top of this, throughout her teen years, she had terrible menstrual pains that would later be documented as major contributing factors to her madness in her later years. Her younger years seemed to be uneventful and filled with depression and nothing special really. But against all odds and the wishes of her father, in 1553, she took the throne at the age of 37 and married Philip of Spain immediately. They quickly tried to have children, and just 2 months later, she was pregnant. But not everyone believed it. Rumors started pretty quickly that her pregnancy was fake, and since this was the 1500s, there wasn't really any way for her to show them a pregnancy test or something like that to prove it, so people just kept a close eye on her. 6 weeks before she was expected to give birth, she was confined to her chambers, as is tradition. But when the time came, there was no baby. The doctors thought that maybe they didn't get the timing right, so they set the date back by a month. Rumors spread quickly that maybe she delivered a boy or died during childbirth. But before the new date, her stomach began to shrink and her symptoms went away. She left her chambers alone and childless. She believed that God himself had punished her for something and she was doomed to never have a child. And in the background of her pregnancy, England was busy dividing themselves between Protestants and Catholics. As their ruler, Mary decided to unite everyone under one true religion and signed an act that would go on to cause a series of religious persecutions in 1555. And by persecutions, I mean around 300 Protestants were burned at the stake for their beliefs not aligning with what the Queen wanted. Like I said, 1500s England was absolute chaos. People started calling her Bloody Mary for this, and the name stuck for 500 years. Mary would go on to have another false pregnancy before she died at 42 of what most people assume to be ovarian cancer. You can still hear her name at your kids' sleepovers sometimes, and I'm sure that you could put them to sleep with this boring-ass version of the real Bloody Mary when they come to your room because they're too scared to sleep. But I don't know, maybe the former queen is actually haunting your children and you have bigger problems. Some think that the ghost of Bloody Mary is actually Elizabeth Bathory, who I will do an entirely separate episode on, who allegedly murdered hundreds of girls and bathed in their blood and got the nickname the Queen of Blood. Another alternative theory is Mary Worth, who was executed during the Salem witch trials. It's not as popular, but in some of the versions where the kids go up to the mirror, they say Mary Worth, not just Bloody Mary. What do you think? Do you have a scary Bloody Mary story? Let me know on any of my posts or by messaging me directly on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or at the tmpodcast19@gmail.com. If you'd like to support this podcast or select the content that I cover, head on over to patreon.com/thetmpodcast and become a patron. If you'd like to solve a murder mystery with a group of friends or other people, don't forget that the TM Podcast is brought to you by Hunt a Killer, a murder mystery subscription box that's delivered directly to your door every month. Use my promotional code TMPodcast to receive 20% off of your first box. Thank you for listening to the TM Podcast.